And now, from the Career Tech Studios in Stillwater, here's your host, Rob McClendon.
Well, 2012 is the year federal lawmakers are scheduled to rewrite a piece of legislation that few may understand but affects all of us. The Farm Bill is a comprehensive piece of legislation that covers everything from the food we eat to the water we drink, even the air we breathe. And while farm subsidies are just a fraction of the total cost of the Farm Bill, it is those direct payments to farmers that are under scrutiny on Capitol Hill and has farmers here in Oklahoma expecting some big changes.
Well, created during the Dust Bowl days by President Roosevelt, farm subsidies were a way to save thousands of small farmers on the brink of disaster. Since then, tens of billions of dollars has flowed into farm country to control commodity prices while also helping farmers through the lean times.
In truth, it's the American consumer that is subsidized by the fact of what American farmers do.
Mike Spradling is president of the Oklahoma Farm Bureau and says he fully expects direct payments to farmers to be eliminated by a Congress looking for ways to trim federal spending.
That if we're going to lose at least 30% of our direct payments, we want to be certain that that shifts back toward crop insurance or some type of risk management for our farmers in this country.
That's because farming by its very nature is a risky business. While this year's wheat crop looks outstanding, you don't need a long memory to remember last year's Oklahoma wheat crop was devastated by drought. A couple of years before that, it was hail, and before that, flooding.
We've got to have some support there, a safety net that keeps these farmers in business for the consumer's protection.
But the chairman of the House Budget Committee, Paul Ryan, is calling for reductions in not just direct payment subsidies, but also in federally subsidized crop insurance. And if the full House agrees with Ryan, the Agriculture Committee will be required to write a farm bill that meets the goal of $30 billion in cuts, or about a 19% reduction.
We have a $14 trillion national debt. We've been running now in the last few years $1 trillion a year plus deficits. We have to get a grip on spending. We absolutely do. And everything's on the table. What I have said repeatedly here in the nation's capital is to the leadership, to the Budget Committee, to the senators, to the White House, anyone will listen. Tell us what kind of resources we have to work with. Give us a dollar number, and then let the committees of jurisdiction in the House, that's the Agriculture Committee, let us make the hard decisions. We'll work to get rid of any duplication that may be there. We'll work to get rid of programs that don't maximize the return to rural America and to the consumer. We'll do what needs to be done, but let the folks who understand farming and ranching, let the folks who understand rural America, and that is the House Agriculture Committee on this side of the building, let us make the tough decisions.
Oklahoma Congressman Frank Lucas chairs the House Ag Committee and is in the tough position of writing a farm bill during an election year that could make no one happy.
The economy gets tight. You might not drive that extra mile in your automobile. The economy gets tight. You might not buy that extra widget. You might not spend that extra whatever at the entertainment. You might stay home. But you need so many calories a day. You need enough healthy and nutritious, safe food to exist. This is the committee that drives the policies that make that possible.
And with a projected cost of $480 billion before cuts, some lawmakers question whether we can afford to continue to fund a farm bill that supports an industry that's reaped record profits in recent years. Yet those in farm country say,
are we sure that we can afford not to do it?
Jody Campeachy is a public policy specialist for Oklahoma State University and says the farm bill typically comes in at less than 2% of the total federal budget, with the vast majority of the money going to non-farm spending.
In the Farm Bill, about 70% of Farm Bill spending actually goes to food and nutrition programs. These programs include like the food stamp program, which is now called the SNAP program, the WIC program, Women, Infant, and Children, school lunch programs, school breakfast programs. So a very large portion goes, to help feed those who need it. And about 15% of Farm Bill spending actually goes to, directly toward commodity programs. So those would be the commodity payments, price and income supports. About 8% goes to crop insurance programs, and about another 8% goes to conservation programs.
And while actual farm payments make up a small part of the Farm Bill's costs, Oklahoma cotton grower Matt Muller says their benefits go well beyond his farm.
I don't think the general public understands the amount of money that we go through. I'm a 1,200-acre farmer. That is small for my county. And as far as money I'll go through, I'll go get loaned for $300,000 at the bank to put a crop in. We go through tens of thousands of dollars just to pay for our equipment and our fuel and our labor and our chemical and seed. We handle a lot of money and make a very small margin on it. And so that's why when you talk big numbers, it doesn't necessarily translate to a big profit towards us.
Still, Oklahoma producers received about $3.4 billion in federal farm support over a 10-year period, with the largest 10% of the producers receiving about 70% of all the benefits. Money farmers like Muller defends as an investment in entire communities.
The subsidies we receive are basically passed on throughout the economy. So we can go buy John Deere tractors so that the guy who made the John Deere tractor making union wages can keep his job, so that we can buy our chemicals that keep Monsanto and the investors in Monsanto and those companies involved. We basically take that money and put it back out in the economy. And if you take the legs out from under agriculture, if we don't have a safety net to operate with, and therefore we can't stay in business, there's going to be a lot of the American industry and business that's going to take a hit as well, because we add tremendously to manufacturing jobs and support jobs.
Making the debate this fall over the Farm Bill not just about the farm.
Now, the government now pays 60% of the premium for crop insurance, as well as underwriting insurers' operating costs and sharing the burden of payments to farmers in high-loss years. But under the Ryan budget bill, the government would only subsidize 40% of farmers' crop insurance premiums at a savings of about $1 billion a year for taxpayers. Also, under the Ryan plan, food stamps, which help poor people buy food and account for 3/4 of Farm Bill spending, would become a block grant to states. Access would then be limited and tied to work or job training. And as you may have guessed, there is strong opposition to both provisions by different constituencies on Capitol Hill, which many believe makes an agreement on a new Farm Bill in the midst of an election year nearly impossible. When we return, a conversation with an economist who says if it seems like we've been here before, it's because we have.